Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, depending on what time you're listening to this. It's mid-afternoon here on an undetermined time of year.
But if we're helping you sleep, that's fine.
Yeah, and there may be some visual clues as to what time of year we're recording this, or there may not. So we're thinking a little bit today about being part of a group, okay? We haven't quite worked out a snazzy title, but it's something to do with groups. So, first question related to groups. Can you tell me a little bit about a group that you're part of, or a group that you've been part of, and what you like about that group? Doesn't have to be a church group.
Well, I've been part of a few different groups. I have many different hats for many different hobbies. The most obvious to most people who know me will be I've been a part of a D&D group.
Okay.
Different groups over the years. So
Just for those of you who don't know what we're talking about here, D&D is Dungeons and Dragons, which is a role-playing game.
Tabletop role-playing game.
Tabletop
yes.
role-playing
There's a
game.
range of hats, surely, for different characters.
To be fair, I used to dress up as an innkeeper when I would DM, and I'd come to the door with my little lantern and my fake beard, and I broke the stick though, sadly. So then
Usually we try and get a minute or two into the podcast before we veer off.
No,
But I think that might be a new personal best. So anyway, tell us about this.
Yeah, so what did I like about the group? What was beneficial about it?
Yeah.
So originally, I mean, I got into it because of my dad, but I think the case with any group I've joined, whether it's been D&D or doing like dodgeball or something, it's about the camaraderie and the teamwork. And in the case of like D&D, it's a creative outlet. It's narrative. It's collaborative narrative storytelling. There is also fun in just hitting fake monsters with fake minis and things like that. For something like dodgeball, for example, the fact that you've got a consistent group that you feel a part of, that you can improve towards a combined goal. Again, in D&D, you're telling a story. In dodgeball, you're trying to beat the other team. But all of those cases, it's nice to have a group of people with shared interests, shared goals, and generally, it's just nice to be able to go, I've got an evening off, I don't really know who to spend it with. Well, I've got my mates that I play D&D with, I'll invite them round or something like that.
No, that's nice.
I mean, even here at church, it is a church-related one. We have our little unofficial T&T group, 20s and 30s.
Oh, okay.
Which
you're wondering what that was for me.
yeah, especially after all the shotgun stuff from last episode. Yeah. Sounds like I've just gotten really into explosives in the last year. No, that group, we just do like board games, or we did a murder mystery night set as well. We all got dressed up for a Western themed evening and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Good. Okay. So, if you'd like to top that now, Adam,
I don't think I will, because I'm quite a bad group member at the moment. While I'm studying, at least, I'm very off and on, but there's two groups that I'm missing at the moment. One is the music group at church, who practice on a Thursday night, and at the moment that is like kind of prog rock size group. We've got a drummer and a guitarist and a piano and flute and a whole host of singers. It's magnificent. And I play the piano now and then, but I've not got a drummer at home, and it makes things a lot more fun. So I love that group. And if you play anything or are willing to sing, I suggest chatting to Fiona and going along, because it's a blast.
That would be good.
And the other group that I'm failing to get along to is a lovely group of footballers who meet on a Thursday night.
I mean, that group, which I'm also part of, involves dressing up, doesn't it? Because we all dress up like we're footballers.
Yeah, we do. And the illusion lasts for a few seconds.
Put kit on that we really don't qualify to wear.
Isn't this the group that's got like semi-professionals, or like it was very exclusive? You have to be good at football to join.
I mean, good is a relative term.
This is how good you have to, because I thought this was a group of older gentlemen who would play at a pace that I could handle. I went along and I developed shin splints really quickly and had to take a few weeks off.
Well, the fact that we play on quite a small pitch is a bit of a leveler, isn't it? So it doesn't mean there's enough space for these young people to run, because they'll end up being a wall in the way. So it's a good level, literally a leveler.
And that wall's called James, isn't
it?
No,
not necessarily. So there is that. But that, I'm same football group as you playing. That is just nice to get together with people. It is that kind of shared goals, isn't it? And having fun together, and actually kind of having fun together is more fun than trying to trying to just do stuff on your own, really.
Yeah. Although you wouldn't always know from the mood you're in on the way home.
Yeah, but I just like to win. That's all that is. I mean, come on.
The number of times I heard you were a very competitive person before I even really came to properly know you.
For me, you see, if you're playing a competitive game, okay, and the goal of the game is to win, then you're not really playing properly if you're not trying to win. You're kind of not respecting your opponent, are you?
No.
If you don't try and crush your opponent into the ground, you're not really respecting them, are you? You're not treating them as an equal.
Whereas if I don't fall over or kick the ball over the fence, someone, as they get into the car, goes, "Well done, Adam, that was really good."
It's not quite that bad. It's not quite that bad. But yeah, okay. Yeah, that's probably enough on sporting.
It's probably enough full stop,
really.
Yeah. See you next week.
Let's move on.
Chatted about some groups. We've decided we need to move on swiftly. James, you're going to talk to us about some of the best groups that we're each in. What are they?
Excuse me. Well, I think the group that lots of folk in the church are in, and recently more folk have become part of, is growth groups, the home Bible study groups that we have. I forget the total number that we have across the church, and indeed both churches, but there's quite a number now, and quite a good proportion of people in growth groups, the home Bible study groups that meet at various times and various places midweek. So.
Yes, this is a great thing for us because initially we were at a young people's youth night midweek and we couldn't go.
It's called Ignition now.
It's
been so long now, I can't remember.
Lost in the midst of time.
Part of the shake-up has meant that we can go along to one, and cramp our wives' style. That's been a joy. But James, you've got some main perks of growth groups in mind, so what are you going to share with us first as a highlight?
Well, I think there's three main things that I would highlight as sort of being the key, crucial things that are part of growth groups and why they're so important and valuable. And the first thing is perhaps an obvious thing to say. It's a really good way of just building and strengthening relationships with brothers and sisters in the church. Just really getting to know people much better, because sometimes on a Sunday, you're like ships that pass in the night sort of thing. How are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. And the briefest sort of chats over coffee because you've got 17 people to talk to. So you can just really spend some quality time with one another, get to know one another, build relationships. So I think that is the first thing that growth groups are really good for. Secondly, and again, perhaps an obvious thing, Bible study, of course, is the key thing that we do at growth groups at the moment. We're using some notes on Acts that James H has put together. Before that, we used quite a lot of the good book company, the little white study books, and some of those have been topical, like prayer. We did last autumn, which was
Am I right in thinking they're the little white books that are at the back of church to pick up for one-to-ones as well? Or is that a different book?
No, that's.
Oh, sorry.
That would have been an amazing plug, though. What a transition.
That could have been a brilliant segue, but that is a good topic for another time.
Okay, I apologise. Carry on.
But yes, so Bible study, and again, you can spend more time, drilling down into a passage than you perhaps would on a Sunday or whatever, because you can ask questions, which will be somewhat disruptive in a sermon.
Yes, we can heckle at growth group. That's brilliant.
And that's really good to look at a passage together, and everybody brings different insights, different perspectives and things. So obviously we do that as well.
And we haven't all been at St Altman's since we were little, so everyone's got a different church background as well. So some weeks someone says, I really missed this about a different church I was in, or we do this differently, and that's fantastic here because it used to be really weird, and that brings a real richness. It's really good fun.
Yeah, and then the third thing, which links back to the building relationships. Obviously, as we get to know each other better and what's going on in our lives and stuff, challenges people are facing, things they're excited about or whatever, is praying for one another, and you can really share. And last week you were saying, you've got this difficult thing at work. How did that go? Oh, it went really well. It was an answer to prayer, or it went badly. You need to pray for it again, or whatever. So you can really share and build relationships in that way and support one another by praying together.
And that, of course, is available on a Sunday after a service.
Yes,
prayer
of course,
teams
quite
in the Bradshaw Chapel. But it's great to have that group, like you've said, who you get to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a safe space to share stuff, and that people aren't going to go, do you know what happened to so-and-so? So those are the three things I would have. I don't know whether you guys have got any other thoughts, as you say now, being able to both go to growth groups.
I was a little curious. So obviously, with us all being ministry team, there's more of a natural sort of like, okay, we should be in a growth group. But how did you get into a growth group to begin with? Because it might be quite intimidating for some people to sort of go, well, I've just got to the church, or I've been here for a few months. How do I actually find a group? And
Well, if I think back to when I first came to St Albans back in May of 2001, it was. I don't know. I just happened to fall into making friends with folk who were in growth groups, and they said, "Oh, you ought to come to our growth group." And I was in various iterations of the growth group led by 2 or 3 different people. I won't name names because I can't remember all of them. So I sort of fell into it, but hopefully now, we're working on, in fact, updating the information at the back of the church and in the news sheets as to who the leaders are, when and where they meet, and what day and what time, and so on. So hopefully there's more information, or there'll soon be even more information on groups and stuff.
Brilliant. Yeah. And if someone is listening to this and is in church and is maybe new or not in a growth group yet, do they come and talk to you?
Yeah, talk to me. I'm sort of helping sort of coordinate and organise growth group leaders meetings, or any of us, or James, the vicar, of course. Talk to any of us in the ministry team, including myself, and we can point you in the right direction.
Smashing.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask some things. I think every growth group must imagine some things are particular to it. I've only really been to R1, but I think we all imagine we're the kind of rebellious naughty one. So we get off track, and a study lasts an hour, and Jodie's magnificent at trying to pull us back, but I think we're quite hard work. Is that your experience as well? What does Bible study look like in your growth group?
That's a good question, Adam. I think, yes, of course we go off at slight tangents and things, and sometimes go off. That is part of the fun. We have having fun. That's another thing. No, you can put fun and church and growth groups in the same sentence. we go off track a little bit and have a little thing, but by and by we sort of clomp through it. And as we've already said, people have different perspectives. We've got one individual's got a real wealth of real deep theological knowledge and motor training study they've done personally.
But enough about you, James.
No, it's not me. It's kind of the way. Do you want to do this, mate?
Teach his own on.
So they will always bring a really helpful perspective, and it's never, hey, look at me, aren't I clever? It's let me use my knowledge for the good of the group. So we go off at tangents, but we clomp our way through, and we're reasonably disciplined at starting on time. We don't go on too long, but we have a bit of time over coffee at the start, and then we always try and sort of make sure we've got some good time for prayer at the end, which perhaps there's a danger that can get squeezed out. So we try and sort of ring fence that at the end.
I always found it was quite strange when I was younger and growing into actually going to proper home groups. I actually think it was ill preparing to join your sort of youth or your student level home groups, where it's very structured and there's not really any room for going on tangents. You've got to be really on it with the questions. And then I joined an actual home group, and for the most, obviously you do, the discussion is always there, but the number of tangents, like good tangents as well. If someone sat there and they're going like, oh, this passage is really interesting, but I've been, it makes me think about this, and I'm really struggling with the application of that with this. You then end up getting into these great conversations that then, after a service, you can continue them as well, which, it's brilliant, but I did feel a bit unprepared for it.
Not used to this. Wide ranging. It's funny you mentioned doing growth groups and things at university. I led what we call a small group at my Christian Union up in York. I remember saying, Lord, I don't think I'm any good at this, leading a small group. And here I am, 30 years later, still leading and coordinating. So there you go.
You can ask members of James's growth group about all the Lord's goodness to him in those one joy that you kind of brought up by mentioning 20s and 30s and those student groups is that obviously growth group is a bit different because people don't say, here's your slice of the demographic, here's the people your age, here's the people you already chat to. They say, we're going to put you with this group, and it might be who you live near, or it might be a group that's got a space, but it's a bit of a jumble of people who you wouldn't necessarily chat to, or you might not already know, and that's an absolute joy, partly because of the difference in backgrounds and different ages.
I think the intergenerational aspect of it is so
fantastic.
important because it means that, like you say, on a Sunday, I'm not going to necessarily bump into Marion, for example, as frequently for a conversation as I would necessarily like someone that I'm praying for or someone I'm doing youth work with. So the fact that actually the growth group forces us into a situation where I'm actively talking with Christians who have either been, Christians for 2 years to 10 years to 50 years, there's such a wealth of conversation and knowledge and fellowship there that I feel like you miss if you only ever go on a Sunday and don't get that growth group experience outside of it.
Yeah. I can only hope it goes the other way, but it does us so much good to chat to older people in the church. Because it's a bugbear of mine, I'm going to drop in again. People say so often, I feel I'm a bit too old for youth work.
Yeah.
And I want to remind people that what 16-year-olds, 14-year-olds, whatever really need is not someone who thinks like they do and is just like they are, who says, yes, GCSEs are the most important thing in the world and they're terrifying, or yes, this drinking culture seems to be everything, but someone whose life is totally different, who can say, what on earth is Fortnite? That sounds rubbish. Have you played bridge? And let me tell you how the Lord has been good to me for 50 years.
Let me introduce you to the world of bingo.
No, come on, no stereotype.
No, good point.
But it's so good to have those different different visions.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the richness of the church family, a kind of in miniature in a growth group, that range of ages and backgrounds that in a lot of other walks of life, as you say, you wouldn't encounter, would you?
Yeah,
isn't that the joy of a church family?
Yeah, it's one of the parts I think of community today that we feel is a little bit lacking generally, because it tends to be that actually, if you're not part of a church, the opportunity for you to interact with people who are 10, 20, 30, 40 years older than you is significantly lower. Like, I think some of our non-Christian friends, the only people they talk to are over the age of 60 or something, will be their grandparents or their parents. And, that's really sad. Because as a church especially, that level of community and that level of fellowship is something that is so rewarding in terms of the wisdom that's shared, in terms of the conversations that can be had, and just teaching you to relate better to a wider range of people.
Yeah. So come to church, folks. Come to a growth group.
Yeah.
It's all pretty good stuff. Can I ask you one last thing, because it might scare some people? At growth group, we pray together. What does that look like? Is it really terrifying? Do we all kind of chant together, or do we all say, "Now it's your turn to pray out loud"? How does it work?
Well, I can only talk for our group, and what we'll do is I'll say, okay, let me throw the floor up. Has anybody got anything they'd like to bring for prayer, or things to give thanks for, or whatever? Well, I'll make a list, but then we all sort of make a list in between us. We try and remember to pray for things. But there's absolutely no pressure, and if people aren't comfortable praying out loud or not comfortable to share, then that's fine. They can just sit and pray, silently. But in our group, most folk pray, and between us, we'll just about usually remember to pray for all the things. And then I usually start by just kind of praying and recapping some of the things we covered in the study, and so it was really thank you Lord that we were able to look at this and clarify that, and then we usually finish just by praying for us all, be with us all till we next meet, be with those who aren't there this week.
Brilliant. So not too scary.
Hopefully not.
Lovely
I don't think I'm that scared. Hope not. So we talked about questions that we've been asked by our listeners, and so just to prove that we do get questions and we do address them, another question was, what do we get up to? What does a typical day in the life or a working day in the week look like? So let me ask that question to you, James.
Yeah, I'm taking this question as not being, do you do anything other than on Sunday? I'm assuming there is a kind of, what actually do you do? And of course, and it's one of the joys of the job for me, is every day is different. So what I thought I'd do is that I just thought, well, I'll pick a day out of this week's diary, and I'll just walk you through it. So I can't give you a typical day because there isn't a typical day, but I can give you some of the things that I did. So I'm just going to go for this Tuesday. So some of the things I did this Tuesday are stuff we generally do. We have a staff meeting on the Tuesday. We normally have morning prayer. We didn't this week because it's holiday time at the moment. but we did have a Zoom staff meeting.
Yep.
I think it's probably fair to say that Zoom staff meetings are not our favourite thing. None of us particularly like Zoom meetings.
Takes us back to lockdown.
Yeah, it does take us slightly traumatic.
Yeah.
There's sort of still some scarring, isn't
yes.
there? But nevertheless, it was a good hour because we just thought you just need to catch up on practicalities, the stuff to plan. If you leave it more than a week or so to meet, there's just stuff that builds up and you miss things.
Yeah.
So we caught up a bit. I had about an hour, and then you and I had a chat for about an hour.
Was it an hour?
It was an hour,
Wow.
yeah. So we both said, we haven't got much to talk about. This won't take long. And then an hour later.
We were wrong.
We were wrong, yeah. So I can't really remember what we talked about. We get together every week, don't we? In theory, every week at least, just for a catch up. Just to sort of say, how are things going? How are we all doing? How are you doing as much as anything else? So that was Tuesday on Zoom. I generally can't remember what we talked about because it's 2 days ago.
What's working and what's not.
Yeah, something like that. So we had a chat. Around both those meetings, I just had some prep to do. And had some extra things. So I will have put the services together for Sunday based on information that Fiona and others have sent me. There'll have been a little bit of planning. There'll have been the emails to trail through. That takes a bit of time and managing. Like every other human being on the planet, well, in the Western world anyway, working out how to manage your email load is just part of life, isn't it? Really, it's presumably like, I don't know, being able to ride in days gone by. It's just something you have to do. I also did some prep for.
That's even more depressing. Could be riding a horse.
Yeah, could be riding a horse. You know what? I had a colleague once. Tangent. I had a colleague once who had an issue with his heart, and one of the things that his doctor said, this is going back 20 years probably, was to that he should take some exercise. So he took up horse riding, okay, and he called his horse Parish Business.
Well, Parish Business.
Yeah, that is actually a true story. So his secretary could say, "Where on the phone? Where is he? He's out on Parish Business." Yeah. Anyway,
next episode, what is a lie?
Yeah, no, it was true. It was. I'm not saying. It's like a piece of Hebrew narrative. We're not necessarily saying it was a right thing or a wrong thing. It was just saying it was a thing.
But if you see James on a horse next week,
yeah,
you
it
know
wasn't.
What's going
Just
on.
That is one of the things when it was a friend. It really genuinely isn't me. I couldn't ride a horse. I don't like horses. Anyway.
Oh.
So,
I also did some prep. I also did some prep for Sunday. So I always try and sermon prep just spreads through the week for me. I quite like that actually. I'll do a little bit a day. Ideally, just get it percolating around, whether that's jotting down some ideas or I think Tuesday was mostly working through some commentaries. I sometimes read a bit of a book.
Oh, often part of our Tuesday meetings will be talking over a sermon that's happened recently.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is useful.
Yeah.
For me.
So I read a bit of a book. I read a bit of a book on digital minimalism.
Ooh,
So that was good.
hard to say fast.
Yeah, hard to say at all for sometimes. And then I had a couple of meetings with others. So I was over at Little Eaton for a meeting with someone there, just having a chat about various things at church, and the usual kind of thing that you do. And then in the evening, I had a wardens meeting, which Duffield wardens meeting, which is just kind of catching up with stuff. It's a mixture of how do we fix this particular issue, where are we up to on these things, and as much as possible, but never quite as much as you'd like, a little bit of kind of right, and what do we want to do in the future and stuff and so on. So we meet probably on average about once a month just to chew the fat and catch up on things and just plan the future. And because one of the issues here is if we're not careful, because there is quite a big ministry team, it's quite easy just to sort of do everything through the ministry team, or at least feel like you could. And obviously the advantage for me of ministry team is, at least in theory, if I ask them to do something, they kind of have to do it. Whereas obviously volunteers is a slightly different experience. So, but obviously we don't want that. We don't want it to be just kind of all about the ministry team and what we're doing. So one of the key things for me meeting wardens at both churches and others as well, PCC, is just so that there's like a whole load of people involved. So I mean, I have not picked a special day. That is a fairly normal Tuesday. It's a mixture of some prep, some meetings. Sometimes I might have a funeral visit on a Tuesday. Sometimes something will happen and I'll deal with that. But that was my Tuesday.
there you go.
There you go. A really exciting day in the life. Okay.
You did ask people.
And I did not sing Lennon McCartney song, so there's a relief.
Yes, I'm sure that was what was going through my head when we talked about
Life. But if we did want to kind of play out on the last a minute and a half of that song, then we could do that, couldn't we?
Yeah, with the big piano.
So we'll keep it in.
Yeah.
Next episode, assuming that we're not just going to sing to people, what are we going to talk about, James?
Are we going to talk about catechism?
What's catechism?
It's a good question.
It's not a big cave, is it?
It's not a big cave.
No, not a cat.
And it's nothing to do with cats. No, catechism is the process of... it's a process of discipleship where at the heart of it is the idea of essentially learning stuff and knowing stuff. What we probably used to call rote learning, although there's a lot more to it than that. And traditionally, it's certainly within Anglicanism, it would be that the way in which, and talking to some of our confirmation candidates from a few years ago, sort of 60 odd or 70, that they learned the Lord's Prayer and they learned the Ten Commandments and they learned the Apostles' Creed. It's what we still do actually with confirmation candidates now, and we've got confirmation coming up later this year. But it's just, I think we want to talk a little bit more about the benefits of it, because I think it's a practice that until quite recently had really fallen out of favour, become quite unfashionable in the church.
Yeah, it feels a bit old school.
Yeah, and
forgotten that it's really useful.
And the trouble with our culture is that if something feels old school, that makes it bad, which is a problem, isn't it? You don't want to say the past is to be worshipped, but you also don't want to say, just because it's old, it's bad. So we're going to be looking at how we might be able to do that, how that might help us. But that's next episode. I want to start doing that now.
Fantastic. If you've got particular questions about catechism, get them in fast, and we might be able to cover them in the recording. Or if that sounds rubbish to you, ask us a different question, and we'll chat about.
You're really selling next time's podcast.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing from you.
Positive note to end on.
And we'll
there we go. That wraps up another episode. Thanks for watching.